Welcome to the Life as an Observer podcast. My name is Ryan Bean. I am your host in self-observation. This podcast is an exploration of physical and non-physical self through discussion around yoga, meditation, self-improvement, self-realization, and practices that elevate the mind-body-soul connection. Let's start observing. Today on Life as an Observer, I get the really unique and really fun experience of talking to Jason Nemer. Jason is an acrobat, a competitive acrobat, a author, founder of acroyoga.org, yogi, and just really inspiring person. Through his body work, through his words, and through his actions, Jason really shows up to move, connect, and play. Really embracing those fundamentals of acro yoga into his entire life. In today's episode, we talk a lot about his book, Move, Connect, Play, The Art and Science of Acro Yoga. We also talk about other things like trust and balance and communication as values that are needed in order to be an acrobat or to be an acro yogi, to embrace those values, but really to embrace those in our daily lives as a way to get closer to each other and create community. Really an amazing talk that I get to have with Jason. I felt empowered after finishing it. I felt like I wanted to learn more. I felt like there's more techniques I need to know about, places I want to visit, and just really getting to know Jason in general is motivating for me to want to do more acro. For those who are interested in what acro yoga is and how to really create a movement practice within their lives, this is the episode you want to listen to. You want to hear about how everyone can do it, from those who are maybe paralyzed or quadriplegic or amputees to those who have brain injuries. Anyone can do acro yoga and succeed. Through the proper teachings and skills and the writings of Jason Nemer, you also can be an acrobat, or at least an aspiring acrobat. Take a listen to today. We go all over the map, from our trips to India, to Bali, to being in the parks with bare feet doing acro with strangers. Today's episode you do not want to miss. Life as an Observer with Jason Nemer, founder of acroyoga.org and author of Move, Connect, Play, The Art and Science of Acro Yoga. Jason, it's really great to have you on Life as an Observer. Welcome.
It's a pleasure. So nice to meet you.
So we were chatting a little bit that you're temporarily in Texas, and I'm maybe temporarily, permanently in Utah, and we're both on the same side of the country, maybe for a small minute, but yet we're still using technology to talk, which is kind of cool. Something that I didn't ever imagine that I would be doing before quarantine, and that it took me to this place where everything is changing with me technologically. I need new toys, I need microphones and cameras and all these things, but they're bringing us closer together, and that kind of is very similar to our lives, isn't it? So we use tools to bring us closer together and create community, and I think that's something that I would want to be known as in my legacy for certain. So those who don't know who you are, I'd like you to kind of give the introduction. I know a few things about you, but only we know ourselves the best. So I know that
Sure.
you have some things you do. You're a body worker, and you founder of acro yoga, and you do a lot of different things. But give me your short bio or your long bio, and so people get to kind of know who you are.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be sharing more of what I've discovered in the past. Well, I'm 46, so 46 years, but specifically with acrobatics and acro yoga. So the short bio, the long elevator pitch would be born in Mexico. I have a biracial family background. My dad's Mexican, mom's American, Californian, and got to grow up pretty normal California life. And things got a little bit more interesting when I saw the Olympics when I was 9 years old, the 1984 Olympics. And I remember my cousins and brothers were outside playing, and I was just glued to the TV, and I saw gymnastics, and I just thought right then, like, I am going to go to that thing. That is cool. And I didn't meet gymnastics until I was 12. So it was several years later that my little brother was doing gymnastics. And I went in and saw him do it and thought, I'm not going to watch this. This looks really fun. So I did my first gymnastics class, and my mom would come and just laugh at us flopping around. Just, it was not pretty. It was comical, not pretty. But I dedicated to it, and I just really loved learning about how to face fears and developing new power and new flexibility. I mean, these are all the physical things that happen, but they have so many other applications. Learning how to become empowered and flexible are things that have helped me so much throughout my life. So it was a very long elevator pitch, but I will keep going. I saw my first acrobats about a year into my gymnastics training, and it was a gentleman holding a girl in a handstand on his hands, and I was just completely floored by that human expression of unity, of yoga, really. And I went right up to him and I just said, "Hey, I'm Jason, teach me." And they did. They immediately showed me my first trick, and I started training with them. And I did both gymnastics and acrobatics until about 15 years old. And that was when I decided to dedicate everything to partner acrobatics. Ended up competing at the Junior World Championships in Beijing in 1991. 16-year-old kid roaming the world, seeing the best acrobats in the world, being inspired by the potential of the human body. And rewinding or fast forwarding relatively fast, I got into acro yoga. Well, actually, yoga in college. Just took a 1 hour hatha yoga class, and that was similar to when I saw my first acrobatics. When I took my first yoga class, and it was nothing special, but it was everything special. It was learning how to enjoy my breath and these beautiful mantras. And it was my senior year of college. I was ready to go meet the world as an adult. And that class and Asian philosophy were the two things that completely disrupted my life in a beautiful way. Met the co-founder of AcroYoga a few years after that. That was in 2003. And then the AcroYoga journey has been 18 years of just exploration, refinement, listening, understanding, traveling. So it's a very long elevator, but that is my medium length bio.
Well, I'm happy to get to know some of that, because there's parts of it that I didn't know before. So that's wonderful. And especially for the audience to kind of get to know the background, because just like my yoga journey started with acrobatics, and it started with that community. Actually, I'll tell you, I was quite resistant my first time. I was a competitive wakeboarder for a little while, so I was used to getting upside down and flipping around, and that part of it was great, but it was something I was doing on my own. It was very much an individual for me, and for me to join with someone else and depend on their skills and their strengths and their flexibility and their weaknesses, and it was a very vulnerable moment for me to do. And especially since I had not done anything with yoga yet. Now I'm a full-time yoga instructor, and things have changed quite a bit. But at that time, it's a very vulnerable moment to say, I'm going to do this with you. I was with a partner, a girlfriend of mine, who took me to it. And I said, yeah, we'll do that. A little park in Orlando, Florida. And I said, okay, well, let's do that. And I could tell you that I was very nervous. But then immediately the community is what hooked me. It was the community that said, we got you. We got you. We're going to do this. And of course, it skyrocketed from there, from taking courses to taking certifications to learning more. And then eventually led me to wanting to do more with yoga, because again, I was hooked on the idea of this mind-body separation, but yet connection. Because we hadn't learned that before. I'd always been taught, if you just work harder, you'll achieve, and visualize it and train it, and then your body will learn. But I never really thought that I could separate the three entities of mind, body, soul, and train them individually to make myself a better and more connected person. So really, really amazing. And when I teach acrobatics, I talk about some values that I think that we bring into them. And I'm going to let you chat about that a little bit as it relates to your book. So fast forwarding just a little bit, you've had 18 years of building acroyoga.org, which is certifying trainings, safety. I mean, I'm guessing it goes on and teacher trainings and so forth. And I actually learned about your training from a friend of mine who took it. She, I believe it was in San Diego, maybe, or it was in Southern California somewhere where she had taken that. And I
Hmm.
said, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. And I had not been 200 hour certified yet for
Hmm.
for yoga yet. So it put a damper on when I could actually do that. So because I hadn't gone to India yet. So it's something I'm still quite interested in learning the fundamentals from the acroyoga.org perspective and from you and your
Sure.
co-founders to. But yeah, I decided to jump head in when I quit my job and moved to India, and that was a whole nother thing. But you know, there's some benefits to this practice that, you know, when you see people in the park or you see an acrobat and you go, wow, that's pretty phenomenal, you must be really strong, you must be really. And I always tell people that, yeah, there is some elements to strength when it comes to acrobatics, but really bones are stronger than muscles. And it's about technique and the three values that I think are important. But you went ahead and added 18 total. And I want to hear about those a little bit, but about your, no, you call it your noble values. Is that right?
No, noble elements.
Noble elements. Well, so the three values that I always to say is that the acrobatics to me is all about trust, balance, and communication, which are
Hmm.
really if relationship goals, right?
Yeah,
Trust,
right.
balance, and communication. Can I just have these three things in my
So,
relationship?
sounds
And
like you have a tattoo in your future.
maybe or a T-shirt or something, maybe a bumper sticker. But tell me about those. Tell me about those noble elements that you included in your upcoming book. The book
Well,
is Move, Connect, Play, right? And that's coming out sometime later this year. But I want to hear a little bit about those
correct.
noble elements that you have in the book.
Yeah. So, well, first off, you already hit the nail on the head with bones are stronger than muscles. In each of the chapters, I have principles, and that's one of the principles in the acrobatics chapter.
Hmm.
Acrobats live or die on their bone alignments. The highest level acrobatics is it always looks very easy, and it's because humans are designed to work with gravity through their bone structure. So when you learn how to use your muscles to align your bones, you can do quote unquote superhero strength moves. So basically, for the first probably decade of acro yoga, I was collecting and organizing information and trying to help people see the commonalities between the three roots of acro yoga, which are acrobatics, yoga, and therapeutics. Because gravity is one of those unifying principles where if you have good bone alignment, that's going to support your yoga pose, it's going to support your acrobatics, and it's going to support your therapeutics. So as I was learning by watching, I'm very much an observer. I would write acroyoga manuals and I would train people, and I kept realizing that as mystical and as deep as these three roots are, you can spend your whole life just being a yogi, just being an acrobat, just being a healer, and you'll never get to the bottom of that well. But there are some things that are in common to these practices. So the more that I looked at everything, about six years ago, I had this idea in meditation that I wanted to create a periodic chart of acro yoga
Hmm.
elements, just like the science one. And what was great about that is it was a fixed amount of boxes. And so the infinite capacity and expandability of acro yoga, I handed myself the task to distill what are the most important static shapes of yoga, of acrobatics, and healing. And I remember I was in Miami for a week with a whiteboard, and my thumbs and fingers were black with ink, and I was just this mad scientist for a week. And I came up with something, and then I think about a month later, I did a teacher training in Brazil, and that was the first time that I ever used it.
Hmm.
And I refined it for really until about 2 months ago. I finally, got the last little edits in, and there's a chart, a part of the chart, 18 elements, six for acrobatics, six for yoga, and six for healing, that I call the noble elements. And these are the qualities that happen by doing the practice. So these are states of being that I think have value and I think are the why of acro yoga. When I see people around the world, because it is around the world, there are Chinese, there are Russian, there are Filipino, there every culture that has seen the practice, surprisingly to me in the beginning, they all interacted with it in a very similar way, and they all started generating these qualities. So Yeah, these are the elements that happen when you do the practice. So in the acrobatics, you become a better communicator, you become confident, you become more present. In the yoga, you understand things deeper, you have more self-knowledge, you develop inner peace. In the therapeutics, you learn about listening, you learn about receptivity, you learn about compassion. So these are all the qualities that happen when, in my opinion, you're getting to the depth of the practice.
So there's 18, and they apply across all three elements, right? The therapeutic, the acrobatic, and the yoga. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, it seems like I'm going to have some studying to do. You know, right before we got on, I'll show this. The listeners can't hear it, but I wrote on here on this little paper. It says, "Be a good listener and observe." You know, because I tend to sometimes think about my next thing. We all do that, right? But
Yeah.
yet with acrobatics, it is about that nonverbal communication that happens sometimes. I know in a partner element, you can't just say move your left foot because we're turned in different directions. We have to
Hmm.
touch, tap, move, feel balance, and kind of create that harmony. And I think that's where, and sometimes there is I'm going to call it mistaken intimacy, because it's sometimes perceived in a different way in acro, especially when it comes to the therapeutic element. We feel like we're being healed, or we feel like we're being something that's been plaguing us is being removed by someone. But really it is that alignment that you're talking about, like, hey,
Hmm.
things came into alignment to where we can connect, and I happen to have this set of skills. It sounds like Daniel Craig, right? But I have this set of skills and I know how to use them, and you're in need of them. And I think it's a really beautiful thing to be able to offer that in three elements, not just the circus acrobats, and not just the yogis who go to a hot yoga class once a week, but there is the group of people who just say, I don't want to be an acrobat, but I like this connection. I like this community. I like knowing that I'm safe. I like that there's something, I think it's community wide, but I use it a lot as safe touch. That there is this safe touch that it allows this healing to happen.
Completely.
In a place where I don't feel like I'm owing anything to anyone, or it's almost like there's this obligatory reciprocation that's needed, and it's not. With acro yoga therapeutics, it's just like, hey, I'm giving this to you. It's like a gift. It's like, hey, there you go.
Yes, and I do actually charge for body work, and I was actually in an Uber recently, and I was just, talking with them a little bit, and I told them that for the first 10 years of doing body work, I didn't charge any money. I was teaching acro yoga. When my friends had injuries, I would help them with it, but I never charged. And when I finally did charge, I charged a premium. I get paid $300 to $500 an hour, depending on what country I'm in. And the thing that's interesting about the therapeutics, when I do get paid, it just seems like, wow, this is wild, because I have done this for free. I would do this for free, and I don't feel like I need to get paid for it. I'm happy that I've shifted my paradigm around that, because I did have, kind of a scarcity money thing for many, many years, or not even a scarcity, just money wasn't a focus. And when you're doing acro yoga well and right, you're winning as you're doing it. And I talked to a crypto guy today that I was working on, actually. I said, I don't know a lot about cryptocurrency, but what I believe the first human currency was trust. And the unique thing about trust is, before they were sharing seashells and mines and minerals and gems, trust was the unique human currency. And what's unique about it is when you give your trust, you let go of fear and you win. And when you receive trust, you become more confident and empowered. So you win. Usually in a free market, when somebody exchanges a currency, there's a winner and a loser. And so I am very much a proponent of finding win-win scenarios. And as you said, you got hooked on acro yoga by the community. And when you can have a community of people that are invested in win-win philosophy, where I'm not giving to you because you need to give back, I'm giving to you because I like the process, I like you, I like the community. And when you have a bunch of, emotionally intelligent humans that know how to win and offer their extra, their surplus, that's what I'm cultivating in the world. That's what I aim to cultivate in the world.
Yeah. We some of my first performing opportunities that I ever did as an acrobat were at music festivals. I got some opportunities to go and and teach acro classes at the festival, and then performing in front of some stages. And but there'd always be that like healing element that would happen sometimes in either like the wee hours, um, or sometimes it would be like just because your legs are hurting from dancing and whatever. And I think a friend that we share, my buddy Rob, we would go to these festivals and
Newman in
yeah.
Miami. Yeah.
And we would give like therapeutic sessions to people, and people would be like, how are you doing this all day long? And we would say, we're doing this because it is about that alignment we just talked about. I can sit here in an L-based position all day and give you twists and turns and let gravity be what pushes you into my hands. I can do that all day long. And it's not hard for me to give that as long as you are trusting me. And as long as we're communicating and there's some, some elements in place. But we could do that all day long. I can lay on the ground as long as I don't have a rock in my back. I can certainly sit here and lay and give to you. And that's a really nice way, especially as you're getting to know people, and, festivals themselves are quite friendly, and like, hey, I have a unique gift that I can offer, which they may not find anywhere else. And it's just what they needed. So we used to do something called roller coaster rides. Are you familiar with roller coaster rides?
No, but I want to be. I have ideas in my head. I can't wait to hear.
Roller coaster ride, for the listeners, I'll make it a little bit more descriptive, but a roller coaster ride is essentially taking folded leaf. So you're folding, legs are in straddle, you're bent over, or you're piking at the waist. And usually you make the flyer just embrace their arms. So grabbing opposite elbows or something like that. So they're in a folded leaf, or maybe in a super yogi type position. And if you're at a music festival and you're listening to Grizz or Bass Nectar, essentially you make the movement of this folded leaf follow that of the bass drops.
Totally.
And I cannot take credit for it, because Rob, I believe, was the originator of this, but we did this at many, many festivals and offered them to others. So it's just one of those fun things. Now, that went away last year, and I'm sure that last year was a big change for you. I was very ready to do more festivals, and I was very ready to go teaching and do some more retreats. And then there was other plans. And I'm sure as a body worker, and as your business is pretty much, I mean, not all, but a lot of it is based on touch. It's based on interpersonal space and touch. Tell me a little bit about how maybe some of the challenges you went through as a body worker and acro yoga in general. I mean, guessing the trainings had to all stop for a year. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the challenges you dealt with in shutting down your businesses.
Well, I'll just give you kind of the long elevator ride 2020 story. So I was in Mexico at a very successful event. It was a 10-day event. We had about 45 people. We were having the time of our lives. Some of my best friends were there. And New Year's Day, somebody that was in the community, not actually in the event, he committed suicide. And so January 2nd, I was in the middle of teaching, and my co-teacher says, hey, we got to go across the street and identify a body. So this was the wake-up call of 2020 for me. And it was obviously super, super intense. So, we had to hold space for this guy's girlfriend that was there, a community of 45 people that were there to do an amazing AcroYoga event. And, you never know what cards are going to be pulled for you when. I'd never dealt with something like that as a facilitator. So that happened. And that just, what it did for me in that moment is there was so much struggle and suffering at the beginning of the year because of that. And there were some other events that happened that were just like car accidents, and just all these obstacles started showing their face early in that year. And there was a moment where I got to hang out with a puppy. And this little newborn puppy filled my heart so much. But usually I'd be like, okay, cool, a puppy. But I was feeling the polarization or the dynamic nature of 2020, that the lows were going to be really low. So if I have a moment to experience a high, I'm going to drink it in with every pore of my being. So I soaked in the puppy love. And then my next trip was to India. I taught a course there, and I'm sure we'll talk more about India, but I want to kind of get to the 2020 story more for this moment. Then I went to Malaysia and Bali. Bali, I teach a teacher training. And at the end of the teacher training, we led a festival with 100 people. This is February 20th. So we have heard of Corona, but things haven't gotten crazy yet. And basically, when I got back to America early March, I could feel it was going crazy. So I bought a vehicle and I got across the border into Mexico and quarantined for 4 months in Mexico at a friend's retreat center in Sayulita. And all of us went on a wild ride last year. But what was unique to me is this has never happened in my life before. I don't like absolute terms like every and always. I think I can say it pretty close to accurate. Every single one of my acro yoga friends had some type of breakdown during 2020 because for a lot of us, we had our income taken away. We had our friends, our family, our identity, our ability to travel, our ability to love people, all of them taken away. And in 2020, the end, I did a New Year's retreat with some friends, 10 friends. So if it wasn't for that, I did body work on 10 people in 2020. And after that New Year's retreat event, it was 20. I worked on 20 bodies. And like at a festival, you'll work on 20 bodies in one day at a festival.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, easy.
that was our norm. And I didn't know how much I loved body work until I couldn't do it for a year.
It's reconfirming that you realize that it is your passion, right? So they always say when you find your passion, you'll never work another day in your life. But what happens when your passion is taken away from you? And it almost feels as though there's like a withdrawal, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know if you had some of this same I'll call it feedback because it was a nice way of saying it, but I remember having it taken away. I moved here to St. George, and immediately I wanted to start creating community because it didn't exist in the way that it did in Orlando, and in St. Pete. And I really wanted to have that because it is something that I was having a withdrawal from. But the feedback that I got with creating a space where someone is above you, you're touching hands, was you're being irresponsible. You're being socially irresponsible. You shouldn't do that. What do you think you're doing? You're going to get everyone sick. You're going to be the problem. This is your fault. And part of me was receptive to feedback, but part of me was also very resistant to that because part of my health, I think, for me, is those uplifting, those dopamine lifts, those connections. And I do some other stuff with cold immersion and breath work that keeps me pretty darn healthy. I haven't been sick in a long, long time because of that. But I felt that as though there were certain sectors of the acrobatic community who were very much disappointed with their acro events happening. Did you get any of that feedback too? Like that where you wanted to do acrobatics or you wanted to be on the beach with friends, or what did you receive as you were trying to be you?
Right. So I will, for the rest of my life, be wearing many hats. And I'm the co-founder of AcroYoga. I own a company. I've certified 1,500 teachers. So there's lots of different levels of how my thoughts, words, and actions affect other people. And then at the core of it, I'm Jason. And Jason has needs and desires too. So when I was in quarantine in Mexico, I had a girlfriend that I was with. And in the next village over, there were about 4 acro yogis. And we couldn't go village to village in the height of the pandemic. They were really, really strict about anybody going anywhere. So when we had our first party where there were, I think, 6 or 8 people, 3 dogs, like I think all of us cried at some moment during that event. And it was just what surprised me, or one of the things that stood out so much, is we got into our patterns so deeply of, okay, it's 2 people. This is how we cook. This is how we clean. We got into our patterns. And when you had the magic of 8 people, they're cutting vegetables, they're playing with the dog, they're going down to the beach. It was just so beautiful to be in flow with people again. And I did see a lot of polarization, and some. I came up with this idea slash stabilizing mantra early on in the pandemic. I realized that no matter how intelligent somebody is, people are going to make very emotional decisions with coronavirus. This has never happened in our lifetime where a whole globe of humans is having similar restrictions and similar suffering. So I don't care if you're a PhD virologist or if you're a shaman, people are going to act emotionally. So I need to know that. And that includes me, because I try to be logical and I try to think straight. But as soon as I realized that there were going to be a lot of there's going to be a big rainbow of acceptance of what is normal and what is not normal during this pandemic, that helped to ground me and just expect very wild, unexpected reactions to this.
So where you're in Texas now, and there's a pretty good acrobatic community there in Austin that I'm fairly familiar with them. I know that there's a pretty good. Are you guys back to normal or semi-normal, or how are things going there?
It just started up. So when I came to Texas, I came in a pod, and it was one, two, three, four, five, six people. And I was vaccinated early. When I was in San Diego, I went as a volunteer because I'm bilingual, and I got to help a lot of the Latinos get their first shots. So mid-March, I got my second vaccination. So as soon as I came here, I felt safe and I felt fine, but I was in my pod for the first month and a half. And I just started for about the last month expanding my client network and meeting more people, but I haven't jumped into the acro community per se. I do know they exist. I do know they just started up. They had a jam a couple Fridays ago that were 70 people. And one of the guys that's organizes it, he's like, wow, we used to have 150, and 70 felt like claustrophobic. So I think a lot of us, as much as we want things to just open right back up, there's a bit of a bumpy reintegration into what was normal. And I think it was really beautiful for us to be able to have our lives stripped down to the very basics. And now we have the opportunity to rebuild. How many friends do we really want to have? How much interaction do we really need to be happy? And so I think there's a lot of reconfiguration going on. But the news is in Austin, things are definitely opening up more. Texas is a little bit more on the progressive edge of pushing the
Yeah.
corona situation.
Yeah, we never really had much here. Maybe it's because I live in a very sparsely populated area, and we never really had that as an issue. But I'm still working at building community here, just in general. And I think that
Yeah.
those who have I guess a stigma is the best way to say it, but a stigma about that interaction and what touching and does, and that we need to overcome that. And I'm sure it'll happen over time. But you know, we had that, I'll call it grace. We had that time period where everything shut down, which
Hmm.
allowed us to create new things,
Yeah.
and without that, we would have still been in our weekly jams, our classes, our teacher trainings, our retreats, and we would have just
Hmm.
kind of flowed. But what it really did do is give us a time to slow down
Yes.
and make a few changes that are now positively impacting our lives. This podcast came out of pandemic, and
Yeah.
your book came out of pandemic. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Tell me, I read one book, and I'll tell you, I think this might be the first acro yoga book for sure. I read a book that was about partner acrobatics. I think it was called Contact Yoga, I believe.
Hmm.
This was about partner yoga,
Yep.
similar but not the same, and not even close. And then I've read a bunch of acrobatic things, but this is the first of its kind for acro yoga. And the name of your book is "Move, Connect, Play: the art and science of acro yoga," right?
Correct. You're
And
one
you're
of the
the
first humans to speak it out loud.
the art and science of acro yoga, and you're the sole writer, or is this a partnership with your with acroyoga.org with your co-founders?
No, I'm the sole writer. I did have some of my best friends help edit the book, two PhD smarty pants, one of my best friends, both male and female best friends, just people that really know me and really know the practice. So lucky enough, 2019 in the fall, I went to New York, and my agents helped me put together a book proposal. And I'd written many acro yoga books before, and actually Contact Yoga. These are the people that taught Jenny, the co-founder of Acro Yoga, Jenny Sauerklein. They taught her the therapeutic aspect of acro yoga. So these lineages have many different inputs, and there's hundreds of people that have given their most prized practices to me and Jenny back in the day, and we weed them all together. But getting back to New York, I got to pitch 5 different publishing houses. And out of the 5, there was only one that I got to fly the editor. And I got this woman up on my feet and I did all kinds of stuff with her. I had her in a handstand on my hands. I have a video of it actually. It's a remarkable
You put
video.
the publisher in hand to hand.
In a hand to hand, and
That's
then
wonderful.
did therapeutics on her. Like, I knew that this is the moment for me to shine like crazy. And out of the 5, Penguin Random House was one of the 5. And as soon as I met them, I was like, these guys suck. There's no vibe here. Sorry if you're a fan of their stuff. But it wasn't about them as a company. It was about my vibe with that guy. It wasn't there. And when I asked him to fly, you should have seen his face. It was just like, I don't get out of the seat and I don't fly. So when all of the offers came back, like the one that came from this woman, Daniela Rapp is her name, was leaps and bounds above all the other ones. And I knew that we had an essence connection. So if I'm going to build a project with somebody, I want them to understand what they're building. And she went to the boardroom and she said, look, this guy in 5 minutes completely changed my life. This book is going to change the world. We need him. And she fought to get a really good deal. And so, pandemic happens and I get to go to Mexico on the beach for 4 months and write, and work with my friends. So really, I couldn't have had a better scenario of world events, including the moment now where people are starting to get out of the pandemic and they're kind of like teenagers just stumbling around and a little awkward and not sure how to dance anymore. So I really believe that the wisdom in this book is going to help people learn what the value of connection is, learn different ways that they can interact with their bodies and with the bodies of their friends and community.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the play element though too. I mean, I think as a title, we sometimes say we're acro monkeys, right? And because monkeys are all very playful and making shapes and jumping around and flipping, and there is a sort of seriousness, kind of that publisher you said that doesn't get out of the chair, who has lost maybe his idea of what play is. He said it's only for kids, only kids play. But the thing is with play is it not only increases your connection to someone else because you're playing together, you're creating this vibe, even if it's not competitive play, it's just play, it's just sharing. And I think that it also empowers you in other ways. And that play itself makes you feel that confidence that you were talking about. Like, hey, I feel confident that I can walk into a conference room and put a lady in hand to hand. That's play. Because I mean, if you didn't know that ahead of time, you wouldn't just be picking up some random person and putting them upside down. That's quite dangerous.
True.
So you have that little bit of communication with them. Hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to get there. This is what you need to do with your body, and then you get them into it, which creates a lasting, I guess, impression, but also memory forever. She'll remember that forever. No one else has pitched a book that way, and at least not yet. And I think that you and I can both attest to that through many jams and different travels. With that, this practice itself becomes very memorable. More than at least for me, more than some yoga classes. It just becomes a very memorable experience based on who's there and where it's at.
Yeah, and you spoke to play, and in the acrobatics, yoga, and therapeutics are healing. Healing comes from the word to be whole. I just taught my first live event here in Austin. It was about 10 people, 5 couples, and I basically taught a very beginner workshop, and I love teaching beginners because they get so wowed by very simple things. They're just like, oh, you're not jaded by chasing the skills yet. That's so nice. And at the end, I just said, is there anything that anyone wants to share? Something that was surprising, something that was, that you appreciated. And this woman said, it's really hard for me to trust people, especially men. And she went into a little bit about just having sexual trauma and how healing it was for her to be in a room with people where she trusted everybody and she trusted every man, and her partner was there with her, but she worked with other men. And a lot of times we don't even know where how much more joy we can have out of life by playing, or how many wounds we've pushed down and we don't even know they're there. Or if they come up, we don't know how to face them, and we don't know how to even address the path towards healing. And this is what's so beautiful about being in a community. Every single person has a different medicine. They have a different magical skill that they can sprinkle
Mm,
into your life. And I don't believe in healers so much. I believe in people that create collaborative healing spaces. So if I feel I am a healer, I'm going to heal you. First of all, it's an ego trip. And second of all,
hmm.
it's really not true from my experience. The healing happens in the other person's body. The healing happens in my body when I'm present, when I'm loving. And if that other person can be present and loving as well, great. But I'm not here to fix people, because there isn't anything to fix. There's an opportunity to understand more, to grow more, to love more. And these are again, it comes back to noble elements and or the energy that flows between people. This is why I do these practices. It's, the Instagram likes are cool, photographs are cool, but the
Yeah.
energy that flows between people that are fully present and saying yes to each other, it's magical.
That's something that can't be captured by a picture, Jason. Honestly, some of that, I wish we could. It's really hard to capture that element of healing that took place, the changes that took place, trusting that happened. Um, and truthfully, some of the hardest acro poses and moves don't always photograph the best.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's the simplicity of a very
Hmm.
easy thing that just shows the beauty in nature and shows us in harmony with nature. Just being there next to a rock or next to a tree and making a shape that emulates nature is actually more powerful of an image than someone in a beautiful costume tossing someone in the air, and you can't really see what's happening. You just see, a blur of a flyer, and they're all impressive and wonderful, but the really, I think the impressive pictures that come out of it are really when we're in harmony with one another and with our elements around us. And that's what I like about acro. You just take any equipment other than maybe you need at least two people. I like to tell people that if they're going to try it, they need at least three.
Yeah.
They need at least three to try, because they're going to see on Instagram some picture that they want to copy.
True.
And
The photographer.
but then
If it did.
the fourth element is definitely the spotter. And I'm guessing you talk
Yeah.
about that in your book, that is part of safe touch, is being safe practices, having spotters. And I've learned many times that actually the spotter is the most dangerous position in acro yoga.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I bet a lot of people don't know this about me or about the practice, because I did a 180 early on. But I'd say the first 2 years of acro yoga, I didn't teach spotting, because the classes were small enough, and I would always have myself, Jenny, and at
Mm,
least one or two assistants that we would just teach. And then it's like when I clap my hands and say go, we were running around catching people, because I thought
mm,
people would have no interest in spotting. They're like, I didn't pay money to come to this workshop to learn how to do your job. That's your job. I'm here to do the acro. That was my mindset. And the first world tour, I wasn't even a world tour. It was the first time I was traveling to Europe, I think. I had a workshop in London and I had 40 people, and it was just me. And I was like, oh shit, this is when it gets real. And basically, I started the workshop and I said, hey, usually when I teach, I have a bigger team. I'm going to have to teach you guys in groups of three. So if you came with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, you're going to have to bring a friend into this party. And I was shocked, number one, how well it worked. I was much more calm and I could actually see the whole room instead of running around and putting out fires. And I was also shocked how much they would talk about what they learned as the spotter, because they saw things from the outside. And that's really where the spotting became a huge part of the practice. And at this point, I really believe that the growth of the community is expanded or contracted by the spotters. And I felt this for the first time when I was at the Dutch Acrobatics Festival, my second year. And there was a workshop where they taught a three high pyramid that was their pinnacle move. And there were no spotting belts and the mats weren't that thick. And I had a flyer with me and I just looked around and I saw all these really tall Scandinavian, Northern European men ready to catch. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try a three high pyramid with my friend.
yeah.
And I would never do that outside of lines or outside of really safe environments. But it was a really safe environment. So I'm glad that you see and value and recognize the beauty of, because really what the spotter is, when you're a base and a flyer, that's partnership. When you're base, flyer, spotter, three is the smallest community. Everything you learn in that triad, especially if you switch positions, becomes your template for how you interact with a greater group of people. So there's a lot of life lessons that get learned when you are flexible enough to change from base to flyer to spotter and learn how to exchange information and lift each other up.
Yeah, certainly. There's definitely value in learning. I'll see people where like I'm a base. Nope, I'm a flyer. Nope, and they already claim their roles. But there's a lot of value in just saying, hey, I do all of the above. Actually, in Orlando, we had a shirt. One of my friends, Sarah, made a shirt that said, "I have base, I fly, equal opportunity," or something like what it said on
Yeah.
her shirt. I'm an equal
Yeah.
opportunity acro yogi or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was great to see that shirt that we're pushing equal opportunity in all aspects of it. But yeah, I hadn't gotten into lines until I started really training at some of like the cheer gyms, and I went to St. Pete, and there's a really beautiful acrobatics gym in St. Petersburg. And, that's the first time I'd really gotten into
Aaron's
lines.
place. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And
And
just for your listeners, lines are spotting belts, ways that you can do really dangerous things with pretty much zero risk.
but still needs three people. You still need a flyer
Sure.
base, and you still need somebody to control those lines. And that was an eye opener for me, because there was things that were um, we did before using lines, but it was quite dangerous, and maybe
Right.
you have two spotters and, or three even, where you're doing like pitch catch kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
now with lines, it made it a lot different, having big cushy mats. And so
Hmm.
those who are getting into acrobatics and getting into acro yoga specifically, and they read your book and they want to go out there and do it, they're going to start to see some things. Tell me some advice that you would give them. I'm guessing that you have some areas in there about spotting, but some
Hmm.
advice to those who read your book and go, okay, honey, this is what we're doing now. Let's go out there and
Yeah.
do some acro yoga. Tell me a little bit about what you would advise people when they read your book and they want to get started. Where do they go? How do they start?
Yeah. So thank goodness I have practiced teaching to beginners for a long time. I've learned a lot of very stupid things that I've done in the past, and I've learned from my let's say my younger years as an acrobatics teacher, teaching civilian population acrobatics. What's in the book, especially if you go right to chapter 4, your first flight, it is time tested. It's very well sequenced, and I would say good advice is it should be a hell yes for everyone to do what you're about to do. And if anyone is like, I'm not sure is a no. And there's lots of different things you can try in the book, including partner yoga, including Thai massage. You don't have to start with the crazy dynamic acrobatics. So you're doing acro yoga well and right. If it's easy, if it's fun, if you're enjoying the person that you're with, if you turn into kind of a not so nice person to work with because you're pushing your partner, or your partner isn't ready to do certain things, find something that both of you can say yes to, find something that's fun, and like you said, ideally you can find that third friend. So a lot of times partners, they have their own dynamic and they have their own patterns, and as soon as you mix one other person, everyone's on their best behavior and
Hmm.
everyone wants to show up and have a good time. So those are a few key things.
I've found that almost, I mean, most metropolitan areas have communities. You just have to look for them.
Yeah.
That can get you introduced to them. And of course, you have a lot of resources on your website too. So of those who don't know Jason's website, well, I'm talking about acroyoga.org, and then your personal website. Do you have resources on there too, or you
Coming
acroyoga.org?
soon.
Okay.
Coming soon. jasonnemer.com. I'm working on it. And also on YouTube, AcroYoga International. I've got tons of free videos there. I
Okay.
really want the practice to be accessible, safe. The mission statement of AcroYoga is to support all people through movement, connection, and play. So actually coming up with the title of the book wasn't really that hard. I just, kind of copy
Yeah.
pasted my mission, and my mission is based on my CEO years ago. She said, what is, we were trying to find the mission, the new one for acro yoga. And she's like, what is Jason Nemer's mission statement? And it really is about empowering all people. And I've had the pleasure of working with many different cultures. I had one year where I worked with 3 different paraplegic people, and I write about that in the book. So when people say I can't do acro yoga, I have some very compelling evidence that all people can do it. And it just depends on whatever your limitation is. You have to be clever and creative about how you say yes to it. Also, just on that note, there's a lot of power to the words that we say. And I've learned this from yoga, from mantra, from just studying a lot of different languages. I really don't like the word disabled. I have a friend, the amputee acrobat on Instagram, CR. He's in Vegas. I don't know if you've met him. You probably will. He's an amputee and he can do things that most humans can't do. So instead of disability, I think people are extra ability, because if you don't have a leg, if you don't have the use of your lower half of your body, you have to become a superhuman to do the most mundane, simple things. So this is for all people, and you're all invited to the party.
Yeah, it's intimidating when you see someone who's quite skilled or a partnership who's very calibrated, and you say, well, and I'm using the words very specific there because that partnership is calibrated. No matter how skilled I am, and yes, I can help a flyer get into a lot of different areas, but that calibration takes it up an amazing dynamic where both partnerships. And so usually when couples come to classes, I separate them because I want them to leave feeling success. So and similar to your story, I teach a style of yoga occasionally called Love Your Brain, which is for those with traumatic brain injury, and it's through a company. And I had the unique opportunity to fly people in acro that have suffered or survivors of TBI, and we like to use the word resiliency with them rather than a recovery, because we're moving forward in a way that is very elastic, very much like I can move that direction. I don't want to go back to who I was. I don't want to recover that person. I actually want to be and improve and get stronger and better. And I think those who have those unique abilities, maybe you're an amputee, or those who maybe have a head injury, who are maybe even more acutely aware of what their abilities are. Whereas those who are able-bodied may say, I should be able to do this. I'm fit. I'm strong. I lift weights. But yet they're not acutely aware of like body positioning and body awareness and stacking and bones. And so as you become less resistant to what your ego tells you that you can do, what you used to be able to do in high school when you were a cheerleader, then you begin to go into that resiliency mode where you say, I can improve and I can grow and I can evolve. And it's a really beautiful thing to watch someone who was intimidated. I've had people come to my classes, and I'm sure you have too, who maybe live in bigger bodies, who say, I'm just going to be the base because I, and I'll say, no, get over here. I can fly you. Totally. Anyone can fly you who is doing this properly, who is, understands that stacking alignment. I don't care how much you weigh. I don't care what your dimensions are. Feel the freedom of play. The freedom of play is really like, it's empowering. And there was a part of me for a while that said, I'm not going to fly. I'm a base, as I started. And then I was like, no, I am going to do more of this. And then of course, being the flyer has actually helped me in a lot of other aspects too, because then I can teach from that standpoint.
And compassion. You have compassion for what it's like to be afraid as a flyer, because a lot of us patients like, why are you so afraid? Or the flyers look down, why are you so wobbly? And then the flyer lays down like, oh, this shit's hard. Or the base says, oh, this shit's scary.
Well, we both have some experience in sharing this all over the country or all over the world. And I had the experience of being in India and sharing acro, and it's not unfamiliar. It's not unfamiliar to them, but it's certainly in addition to what is taught in hatha yoga or taught in Ashtanga yoga, and kind of creating these nice shapes, creating new and different shapes that are maybe unique to acro yoga. So what I kind of wanted to hint on is acrobatics have been around for a long time. Acrobatics have been, you can see a bunch of black and white videos of people balancing people on their heads and walking up the stairs in China. And you can see all this stuff happening. Tell me a little bit about differentiation of what acro yoga is to acrobatics. We talked about the three elements, but I wanted you to go a little bit deeper into that if you can, because I remember there was I'll call it a small feud within the community, maybe 2 years ago, where there was a big uproar about calling something that is acrobatics, calling it acroyoga, or calling acroyoga acrobatics. And there was like this, it was really just a matter of terms. And I don't know if you remember when this happened, but there was a group of people who did not want this to be called acroyoga because they are simply standing acrobats. It is standing acrobatics. And so on its fundamental level, can you talk about what acroyoga is and isn't, and what acrobatics is and isn't?
So I can only share from the lens of my unique perspective. I'm a competitive acrobat. So a lot of people don't know what that is. There is a federation just like gymnastics, it's called sports acrobatics. And just like in gymnastics, you have judges, you have a federation, they value skills. Then there's circus, and circus is not a regulated thing. It's a performance-based thing. So when I think of yoga, yoga came from one place and has spread all over the world and has grown and expanded and transformed. So yoga at least has an origin, where acrobatics, there is no origin. Like you were saying with the monkeys and the apes, like it's part of our DNA to be acrobatic. The word acro, like the Acropolis, means the city, the high city on the edge. So it's on the edge is what acro means. Bat means to walk. So to walk on the edge is what the term acrobat means. As far as yoga, yoga means union. So acroyoga is to bring your union to the edge. So you can bring your union to the edge by doing partner work that pushes how deep you can exhale when you're receiving therapeutics, how unified your body can be when you're doing acrobatics, how much trust you can have. So there are things that are inherent to the human experience, and then there are the things that we give the labels to. As far as yoga goes, the father of modern yoga, Krishnamacharya, he was very influenced by British gymnastics. And a lot of people don't know this. And I actually got not called out, but I got some talking to on a Facebook group recently saying that, you know, I need to give more props to yoga and make sure that people know that a lot of the wisdom that I'm sharing comes from a country, it comes from yoga, and this colonial idea of coming in and taking things and monetizing them is really not cool. And I totally respect a lot of those things. At the same time, there is a transference of wisdom traditions. And when something has value to humans, they will continue to utilize it and expand it and grow it. So things like chaturanga is not an ancient thing. This is something that gymnastics influenced. Handstands, this is not an ancient thing. Headstand is. So there's a lot of similarities, but acrobatics and gymnastics directly affected yoga. And current modern yoga is not the stuff that was written on caves and in the Upanishads and in a lot of the ancient texts. So there already has been crossover in the last 100, 200 years. And with acrobatics, there is the competition tradition, there's the circus tradition. And basically, a lot of times people want to claim that this is from this place and this is the person that taught it. And I get that, and I appreciate where that comes from. But at the end of the day, when you see people in the park in Orlando doing a ninja star, do they need to know that Lux is the one that came up with that? No, they have no idea who Lux is. And, you know, this is something that grows, thank goodness, it grows bigger than the person who discovered it. And humans throughout history will always take things of value and put them to use in their life. And that is the biggest compliment I can ever get, is that there are many people around the world that are finding acroyoga is affirming their life. And if these acrobats don't like acroyoga, wait until they get injured and an acroyogi gives them a therapeutic flight. This is when they might see the value of these weirdos laying on their back doing all these kind of acrobatic things.
That's very, very well put together. Thank you, Jason. I was kind of conflicted because there's a lot of things that I really like doing hand to hands, and I really enjoy.
Uh-oh.
Did I lose you?
Uh-oh. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Are you still? Okay.
Yeah, occasionally. Well, you know, I don't think it's a very good podcast or a virtual class if we don't have at least one technological hiccup, because they have to happen. So
exactly.
but I agree with you. We learn from each other. We emulate each other. We grow from each other. I mean, there's a gentleman in the yoga community. I'll say he's in yoga and he's in acro community. A guy named Lamont Good, and I think that he's very influential as it relates to just body movement and postures and changing and enough to where it's influencing yoga. You know, to where we're adding things that he incorporates that are kind of breakdancing moves, if anything, and turning them, and they're becoming yoga poses, you know, and where the Ashtanga is allowing these things to be part of the practice. And I mean, really, if we look at, I should know better than this, but really, yoga has only been in the United States maybe 100 years. I mean, really, in its asana form. You know, when Yogananda came over in the 1920s, 1930s, and then Krishnamacharya, the father of modern Vinyasa yoga, you know, he started introducing things. But really, all of this stuff in the Western world has influenced, and they've influenced each other. And I think that's a really key ingredient, where I'm seeing even teacher trainings in Rishikesh, you know, in northern India, the birthplace of Hatha yoga, where they're offering acrobatics or offering AcroYoga as some form as part of their 200-hour trainings.
That's wild. What a compliment.
I know, right? The birthplace where Shiva's tears, the birthplace of Hatha yoga, is including acro as part of their curriculum, base curriculum, 200-hour training, because they realize that it creates community and an experience that students will remember, that it is memorable, not just the environment, but like that connection. And so I guess I'm going down to India and talking about India here now, but in India, there's a word, I don't know if you're familiar with this word, it's Ishwara, you know, and
the deity that you pray to, basically.
Yeah, whatever that is, it's everything, right? So Ishwara, God or universe or source, or it's in the trees, it's in everything. But really, I think that when we have that joining of divinity, like kind of like the Namaste, we have that joining of divinity, we have ultimate levels of creation. Like we can create shapes, we can create movement, we can create heat within our bodies, we can create love, we can do all kinds of things that are really, really powerful. And we do them in this place of play and connection. I mean, it's really fantastic. And I remember being there and teaching people to do, acro on the beach and, on Mother Ganga, and it becomes quite a show. You're sitting there at the Ganges River doing acrobatics, and it's just a really beautiful place to play and create. And I think that's a compliment to you and the work that you're doing, is that the birthplace of yoga is doing acro yoga there as part of their training. So it's getting out there. It's certainly.
My hairs are standing up. My values are speaking.
And so that's definitely, and so as people want to learn this practice, they're gonna pick up your book, which they can pre-order now through Barnes and Noble and Amazon. They can get the book, so you can search for Jason Nemer, or you can put Move, Connect, Play, the art of and science of acro yoga. Type those things into your search engines, and then you'll find places you can pre-order it, Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And I'm guessing on your site you'll have a link there at jasonnemer.com. When we open up the book, since I don't have a copy, it's not available yet. It's pre-order only right now. Are we going to see photos and pictures of really cool places people doing acro yoga? Tell me about some of the cool things we're going to see in there in the way of pictures. Like, what places have you photographed yourself and others doing cool acro stuff?
Well, the first part of the book is kind of the history of the practice and my life story to a very, condensed degree. So you'll see a photograph of me in China when I was 16 years old doing a high hand-to-hand on the Great Wall of China. You'll see my grandfather doing acrobatics, which I didn't know he was an acrobat. He died before I got that secret. It wasn't until my grandma died. We're going through old photos. She said he was a gymnast, but he was a straight up acrobat. He's doing a handstand on thighs. And yeah, there's over 500 photos in there. This has been the only
Wow.
really difficult part of the process with writing the book, was just organizing all of the content in a way that was beautiful, artistic, but also very user friendly. So you should be able to flip to any part of the book, whether you want to learn how to build more strength, more flexibility, whether you want to learn more about emotional intelligence, if you want to go into the therapeutic Thai massage. There's many different entry points, and lots of tidbits of just wisdom that is very applicable not only to your practice but to your life.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I actually need to pre-order it myself. Are you going to be doing any kind of book tours or releases at some of your trainings? If people wanted to talk to you about it, get a signed copy, that kind of thing. Are you planning anything of that in the near future?
There's too many variables still. Like, I feel like we are climbing out of COVID, but
Yeah.
it's too early to plan those types of things.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to be teaching this practice for the rest of my life. This book is going to be the AcroYoga Bible for the rest of my life. So I will find times and places to bring people together, share the content of the book, and show them how easy it is to activate this practice in their life and in their community.
Yeah. Well, so I'm interested in attending that, and that's why I'm kind of digging into it. So I know that you have your trainings influence the book, and now the book is kind of, you're going to create a course around that, right? Where you're going to be traveling and teaching that course. Is that happening pretty soon too?
Well, I do have an online course. So I actually
Okay.
started with the online content first, and then I wrote the book after the content. So acroyoga.org, you can find the Move, Connect, Play online course now,
Oh,
and you can already start doing the practice. And then when the book comes out, you get all of the poetic details.
so it's a virtual course. It's not a live
Correct.
course. It's not a live course.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, no, that I need to go. I need to get on there and look. And
Well, hey, I'm gonna hook you up. You're gonna get yourself a free copy of that, and that'll get your feet wet.
yeah, no, I'm definitely interested. We have I have a building community here in my community that I want to expand and grow. And what I'm finding is that when I'm not there, when I'm traveling and doing stuff, that the community itself sort of fizzles. Like they want more
Yeah.
information, they want more knowledge, they want someone to guide them through these things. And I think it goes back to that trust factor. And if I were to look in the world of acro, at least acro yoga, I mean, I would think your name is the most trustworthy to teach this content, that I can trust it. I know that it's coming from a place of research and applied in many different ways. Whereas, we could pick up a book about handstands and who knows where they come from. I mean, handstands in general, there's so many different varieties in them, and just general, the
Totally.
circus and the acrobatic handstand and the gymnast handstand are all different.
Mhm.
And the yoga handstand, they're all different in the way that they're taught and implemented and used. So those who are looking to kind of build on what they may know, maybe they've done, or maybe even failed. They've failed at doing a very basic pose while sitting on the beach. They saw it on Instagram. They're going to kind of learn
Mhm.
some of the techniques, and then they're going to have a resource from you how to implement that, which is,
Yeah. And one thing that I just want to chime in on before we hop off. I know you definitely love Indian. We've talked about that a little bit.
yeah,
The first time I had a proper Indian come to an acro yoga teacher training, it was this beautiful woman, and I asked her. I said, "What was your motivation? Why are you here?" And she said, "I want the people of India to know that men and women can touch in a very healing way that is not sexualized, because in India there's a lot of rape. A lot
yeah,
of the cultures in the Middle East and in India have this polarity." So that was one of my first, like, oh my God, what a gift this practice can offer this country that has offered the world so much, because the yogic wisdom has completely changed the world. And then, going back to 2020, February, I land in Goa, and I'm teaching it was about a 4-day course, and it was 30 people, maybe 25 of them were Indian, just a handful of expats from here and there. And they were from all over India, the north, south, east, the west. I was so happy to see that acro yoga was spreading. And at one point we were doing some complicated flying transitions, and it was a husband and a wife, and I wanted to help them. And I just looked at the husband. I said, "Is it okay if I work with your wife?" He said, "Oh, but of course." And I lay down and I start flying his wife. And I was just like so honored that the trust that is built with acro yoga completely breaks down all these cultural barriers, where in India it is not normal for another man to handle a married woman in front of the husband. Like, there's so many cultural taboos that are just being destroyed. And I believe deeply in the beauty of culture and preserving culture. And I also believe that acro yoga has its own culture that can help you expand who you are as an individual, who you can be as a community. And you don't have to let go of the beautiful things that are part of your culture and tradition. And at the end of the day, we are designed for play. We are designed for connection. We're designed for movement. So as we unlock these things, we get to really find new levels of who we can be.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly that as we tear down the blinders or the walls that we put up, I think that we grow. And I once had a teacher of mine, it was in India. He said that yoga is the sledgehammer, that it is the sledgehammer to knock down the walls we've spent our entire life building.
I want to meet your teacher.
He's in Rishikesh, but and to knock that down, and it kind of goes with what the Gita talks about too, where it says yoga is this journey back to yourself. It's through the self, back to yourself. So knock down the walls, get back to yourself, and get back in there. And that's a very beautiful thing to share with trust. And we talked a little bit about how we communicate and how we have safe touch, that's just trusting and communication. But something we didn't talk about a lot, and I love your take on this, is about balance. And I think that's one of the one of those three. I mean, there's 18 in your periodic table here of elements, but one of the three that we kind of addressed early. Can you talk to me a little bit about dynamic balance, rather, because I think we hear a lot about static balance, where we say hold this tree pose, or we, if for yogis. But talk to me a little bit about dynamic balance and your version of balance and how you describe that in your book.
So there is no static balance. A static balance would mean that you're dead. And even if you're dead, you're still moving. So movement is part of life. And as still as you think things are, you've got molecules that are moving at the speed of light. And to be in balance, you have to fall out of balance to even register where balance is. So balance is always going to be a moving target. And there's lots of exercises you can do. Like one that I did when I was very young is just balancing sticks on my finger and then lifting them up and straightening my arm and then doing all these acrobatic transitions. And there's tons of movement happening. So as an acrobat, when you get better at balance, what you get better at is being able to maintain composure when you come out of your 100%, I'm in balance here. So how far can you go to the right? How far can you go to the left? How much awareness do you have that you're coming out of balance? So it's actually my favorite. It's probably my favorite topic about acrobatics is balance, because it's the most mystical. It's the most difficult to describe. And it just so happens that chapter 10, the balance chapter, is right in the middle of the book. I was so happy when I figured that out. When I was counting the pages, like, yes, I didn't mean it, but I meant it.
That is cool that it ended up right in the middle. But yeah, balance is about observing self and whatever else that is around you. I think that we tend to the energy that's around us is what we tend to kind of grab onto or gravitate to, and that's how we kind of find balance. That's why we use dristis in our yoga practice, where we say, I'm not going to be here where I'm wobble. I'm going to be out here. I'm going to be out here.
That's a good point.
And I'm going to be out here to find balance. It's not, I'm kind of using it as a tool rather than it's within me. I'm using this as a tool. One of the first things that I saw, which was a really incredible acrobatic move at the time for me, was something called the get up. And those who are listening, you can do it in lots of different ways, but basically where you have a flyer in your hands and then you start in a laying down position and you work your way to standing up. And it can be done in holding their feet. It can be done holding their hips. It can be done holding their shoulders. It can be done holding their hands. And the first time I saw it was done feet. And I thought it was the most incredible thing that I had ever seen, because I'm like, hold on, that person just stood up with that other person on their hands.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do that. And I remember trying it with spotters and failing. I will say learning. I
There
was
we go.
learning. I was learning to be successful at that point. And I felt a lot of responsibility for my flyer. I felt a lot of pressure to accomplish it, you know. But
Just so you
yeah,
know, the word you just said, I felt a lot of responsibility. This is something I learned from my Asian philosophy teacher.
yeah,
The ability to respond.
yeah,
You felt the ability to respond to your flyer, which is exactly part of balance.
yeah. Okay.
Responding to where you need to be. Yeah, I just wanted to point out your brilliance in the word selection.
Oh, thank you. Well, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Is like I do want to have this ability to respond to them and keep them safe. And um, I remember the first time I accomplished it, it was like I had won the gold medal, but I hadn't won a gold medal. I was just in a park, sweaty and wearing shorts and had dirt on my feet. But
Yeah,
I felt like that. So this is something that the practice that you are refining and putting some guidelines around and putting your noble elements there into place, um, can make people feel like they're winning something, especially if they've been someone who maybe has never been very athletic. They can do acro yoga. Someone who is extremely athletic can do acro yoga. Someone who wants to have connection to their spouse, they can do acro yoga. Someone who has connection to their community, do acro yoga. There's like so many reasons to get out of your head that you can't do it.
completely.
We can sit around and make excuses all day why we can't do something, you know, but if we don't ever do it, then you won't. I know, like one of your hobbies, you told me that you really enjoy cooking, and you know, but
Hmm.
like if you never cook anything, then you'll starve.
Totally.
I don't care how good you are at it, you'll starve. And if you're bad at it and you still make food, you
Well, like
know,
you said, in the park, dirty and sweaty, like you're winning because you're in the practice.
right?
And yeah, this is definitely something that people, no matter where you're at, you can find your entry point. Another point on balance is just there's the three practices. So as an acrobat, you're balancing dynamic bodies, like you said, doing the get up, having them
Okay,
lean and communication, and there's risk involved, and there's sweat involved. And then with the therapeutics, when you're balancing, you're helping to balance the musculature. Do I have tension in this part of my body? Can I get more heat into this part of my body? Can I get more space into that part of my body? And then in yoga, ideally, you're balancing your thoughts, your words, and your actions, and you're being measured in the practices that you're doing every day. So every day you're getting closer to your true self, and you're not being just a crazy workaholic, or you're not being a couch potato. So yeah, the thing about balance is every human, no matter whether they practice it or not, they're constantly going to be in a state of trying to balance their life. And there is no endpoint. There is no winner or loser. There's just people that have more awareness and have more capacity.
mm.
And that's something that happens from mindful practice.
I don't know that there's ever a completion point with acro yoga, though, is there? There's not really. There's always going to be a new washing machine, which is it's kind of like,
Mhm.
for those who are yogis, it's like a sun salutation, but with acrobatics.
That's a great way to describe it.
It
I'll have
has
to
a
put that in
starting
my
and an
pocket.
ending, a starting and an end point, and we link them together like a sun salutation. So we'll call it an acro salutation.
Yeah,
We'll call it acro namaskar. Yeah.
there we
So,
go.
so acro namaskar or washing machine. So, but there's always some to be learned. And we talked about it earlier that people develop them and don't always know where they come from. I've developed a few. You've developed a few, but I don't know that we've actually, someone else has maybe done it. It's just not in a book
Hmm.
somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's out there in the world, you know, and someone has created it. It gets passed through community and changes. And I'm curious if there is a resource out there that you know of, that if people are looking for other people to play with, where can they go outside of their homes? Is there a resource on acroyoga.org, or is there a resource that you know of that they can look for additional monkeys to play with?
Yeah, there's this amazing app called Facebook.
Ah, I've heard of that
No,
somewhere.
yeah. So literally, this is a blessing and a curse how much Facebook has gotten around the world. But the blessing is any city you can think of: Berlin, acro yoga. Austin AcroYoga, New York AcroYoga, and sometimes, there'll be a Bay Area AcroYoga for San Francisco. But with just a little bit of snooping
Yeah.
around, you can find, and in these groups, it's very common that there are multiple thousands of people in the group. So you can say, hey, I'm new to the practice. I just got the Move, Connect, Play Foundation course online, and I'd like to practice high flying whale. Is there anybody that wants to do that with me? And you'll be shocked that this is also the thing that's unique about this practice is if you have a world-class tennis player, they are not going to enjoy playing with a beginner. But if you have a world-class acro yogi and I get to give you your first flight and you get to laugh, like I say this all the time, I get paid in giggles. People laugh all the time when they have an experience with me. So the heart of an acro yogi is somebody that wants to build community by creating positive experiences with people, and especially beginners.
That is so true. The times I've traveled to India, it's a long flight, where we stop in a few places, and I used Facebook, a particular page that's known for connecting in the airport. So
flying to fly.
Yep. So flying to fly, and I was in Amsterdam and I was in Paris, and I got to do acrobatics with people who I would never have met.
That's awesome.
Never. Because they just happened to be in the airport when I was in the airport, and you like, okay, let's meet. And of course you get a few looks, and you might get a security guard or two wondering what the heck is going on, but you're not doing anything wrong.
They don't stop you. They don't stop you. Shockingly enough, they just get confused.
They get very confused and will watch you. So you use some of the tools that are out there, whether it be getting on Facebook and just typing in acro. And I think there's some algorithms there that talk about where you're close. We have the group here in Southern Utah is Southern Utah rather than St. George, Southern Utah acro community.
Yeah.
And you may find that, like you said, Bay Area acro or wherever that is, you may have some of that up in areas, but it's everywhere. And if you can't find it, you can message me, you can message Jason. The best way to find you is jasonnemer.com and your Instagram and Facebook.
Jason
I'm sure you have
everywhere. Instagram,
Jason Nemer everywhere.
Nemer. Yeah.
And then acroyoga.org. So your upcoming book is Move, Connect, Play, the Art and Science of Acro Yoga. And there's the course that follows that book. And hopefully those who want it can pre-order now. It's coming out soon. We're waiting for the publisher to say, hoorah, we're ready. And that's in the very, very near future. You need to come to Southern Utah. We'll hang out.
I'm actually coming to Salt Lake soon. So if you want to take a drive,
not far.
We can do this in person.
Not far. I'm actually looking at doing I'm getting ready to invest in a nice little bus, and which is going to allow me to travel and teach what I do with cold immersion and breath work and yoga on the road. I had a bus before when I was performing, when I was doing acrobatics at festivals, and I sold that when I moved to India. Didn't know where I would let it sit for a couple of years. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to sell it. And I didn't know where I was going to put it. So I'm back into getting the bus. But yeah, that's definitely going to be the case. I need to get up and see our friend Brian. And I told him I would come up and teach a yoga class up there when I get up there. So Jason, thanks for joining me today. I think that this book is well overdue, probably. Not by any fault of yours, but well overdue. People need this information, and they really need this way to find balance, trust, and communication within their community, within their relationships, within themselves. And through using this book and through this practice, I think they're just one step closer to knowing their true self, which is,
well, it's a blessing. Yeah, it's a blessing to be having a conversation with somebody that has so much in common with me. That's a unique benefit. I feel like we have so many stories that we still have to tell each other, and some adventures ahead of us. Definitely.
Well, you pass through the area, you're welcome to come see the bus, come hang out. That's probably where I'm going to be, is in a BLM land somewhere in a bus, but
sounds like a party.
You're welcome to come do that. Yeah, we have a few things coming up. You have some trainings coming up. Is it any trainings you want to talk about that's coming up in the near future?
There's going to be one in Greece in September and one in Bali in December. And, the COVID policies and country rules are ever changing, but basically that is the current trajectory. And I'm actually going to be teaching the one in Bali. My friends will be teaching the one in Greece.
Okay.
So the teacher trainings are definitely a very, very big step. So to get ready for that step, if that's something you're interested in, you can start by just doing the year-long online course where you pay, I think it's $350, and you have access to all the courses, and you'll get a mentor that you'll be sending videos to. So basically we had to figure out how to replace doing in-person events, and our solution was to have a kick-ass online library and do mentorship. So that is
wonderful.
in place.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's at acroyoga.org. They can sign up for
Yeah.
that and join.
Do you want
and
to come to
become
Bali? What are you doing in December?
I do want to come to Bali.
You're
actually.
a 200-hour teacher trainer now. It's a done deal. You got all the prereqs.
I probably should have done it a long time ago. I've actually taken a couple 300-hour programs too, and I probably
overqualified.
I don't know about that, but I just enjoy movement in general. I enjoy Budokan yoga is something that I've really enjoying now, getting more into animal and primal movements.
Cameron's great.
Yeah, I really enjoy doing that, and I've been really getting into just calisthenics in general, kind of conditioning myself. We're about the same age, and I'm finding that my body is not depleting, like someone would say. As you get older, it's actually learning new ways to move, and that's exciting to me, to find new ways to move that are strong, empowering, and also make me feel as though I'm not deteriorating. So it's really wonderful to find new ways to move, and through acro, I found that, and I'm forever grateful for the community that you and your partners have instilled. And now it's everywhere. So I'm forever grateful. Thank you, Jason. And
right on.
We will chat soon. Definitely reach out to me if you pass through Southern Utah.
Done deal.
Hi, brother. Much love.
Ciao.